Good morning. I had really wanted to go live yesterday and share my fifth lemon with you of my identity crisis. But unfortunately, the lemon from the day before, my health issues, caught up with me. And I was in bed and just hurting and wasn't able to get it together. And I was really frustrated with myself that I wasn't able to just, you know, go live and just say what I needed to say. But when you're in pain, your brain isn't working and things just are harder than they really are. And so I gave myself some grace and I said, you know what? You can go live tomorrow. It's not a big deal. What you have to say is still relevant. And I just feel like it's really important to do what I say I'm going to do. And so when I don't follow through with exactly what I say, I'm really hard on myself. So I have to be kind and extend grace just like I would with anybody else. So today, identity crisis. So I'm going to start from the beginning this week where I started my story, and I'll bring you all the way up until now, and then I'll close out. So there was this little girl, and she was born in Juneau, Alaska, to two amazing parents who waited till their mid-30s to have a kid. And they had one kid, and unfortunately their marriage didn't work out. And so this little girl had to go back and forth between her mom and dad's house, and was pretty lonely, accepted Jesus, and didn't feel so lonely anymore. Did all the right things. She was very much a performer, a perfectionist, wanted everyone to be happy. Well, someone unfortunately came into her life and took advantage of her at 15 and brainwashed her to believe that things should be sped up in timing that should have been delayed, if that makes sense. And this little girl learned a lot of life's lessons early on in life, and had a hard time. But with that, she was able to use that lemon and learn that people are people, and that people make poor choices, and that with a lot of love and support, they can also get through really hard choices. And so this little girl continued to move a lot in college, and had lots of amazing roommates and lots of experiences of living with people who just extended lots of grace, and she got to learn so many things about their lives that she got to pick and choose things I'd really like to do that. I'd really like to do that. She also learned not to be super selfish since she was an only child, which eventually prepared her to be a wife and live with someone indefinitely. Well, then she started having these health problems, and it really kind of made her question her abilities, and well, if I'm not able to do XYZ because she's not feeling well, then who is she? What does she have to offer the world? So this little girl continued to I guess she's now an adult, right? And she's trying to process all of this. And she gets up to this point where she looks back at all of the journals that she had written from middle school, from high school, and she finds a list of what she wants to accomplish in her life. And she realizes she's accomplished every single thing, which is an amazing feat, right? The interesting part is then what next? And that's where the identity crisis happens. Is I got to a point where I realized I had the house, lots of houses, right? I had the husband. I just had my second kid. We knew that we were done with two kids. That was we just felt like our family was complete. I had traveled the world. I had gotten my master's degree. I had volunteered. I've done all these fun things. I hadn't done pull-ups yet. That is still on my list, that I want to be able to do 2 pull-ups, which I started at the beginning of 2020 and have not followed through with. So, but really, that's where the identity crisis was. What do you do? So at that point, I'm okay. And now again, I love the Lord, right? And Jesus gives us purpose to live out kindness and extend grace to our neighbors. But it's also up to us to figure out what are bigger purposes? Who are we? I know I'm the daughter of God, but what does that mean? What is my purpose on this earth? So I read this book called Living Forward, and I'll put the link in the comments. It's an incredible book. Stephen had read it before, and he'd done a life plan. it helps you walk through this life plan. So I did that. And basically what it came down to was this book allowed me to figure out, who do I want to be? Like at the end of my life, like what do I want my kids to say about me? What do I want my husband to say about me? And that kind of was able to like start focusing my attention on like, well, who do I need to be now? So at the end of my life, my kids and my husband can say all these amazing things about me. Or when I get up to heaven and God's looking at my life, like I want him to say, well done, good and faithful servant, right? So what can I do now? So at that point, I'm living up to it. So I started out with this idea of like, well, who do I want to become? And I wanted to become someone who was kind, someone who was reliable, someone who was strong, someone who stood up for the weak, someone who wasn't afraid to bring up controversial topics, someone who was brave enough to tell her story and maybe encourage at least one other person. And then I realized, I know who I wanted to be. So what types of steps did I need to take to actually get to be that person? And so through that helped with figuring out my identity. And again, as believers in Jesus, like we know we're loved, but like we still have to make the effort. We still have to do the work to figure out what our purpose is. Like, what are we supposed to be doing? And so it was amazing when I was able to put what was important into my life in different accounts. So I put a God account, husband, kids, personal development. Did I say health? Those were all accounts that I needed to invest in, because at the end of my life, I wanted to make sure those accounts were full and that they were with like true and like pure intentional time and thoughtfulness. So the identity crisis really was, it was like a year or so of just this ongoing, like, what should I do? And unfortunately, it's never just like okay, here's my purpose, right? Because it also evolves. What my purpose was before I was married, what my purpose was before I had kids, what my purpose was now that I have my kids, right? Okay, so now what? So now I get to encourage people. Like, I really feel like my purpose is to be awkward on Facebook Live and just put things out there, ask questions, be involved in my church, and start a business. A year ago, I never, ever would have thought that I would have started a business by now to be a life coach and to help people. And the reason I want to help people is because I'm in the process myself of developing myself, and I know how hard it is and how amazing it is to have someone come alongside you and encourage you. So anyhow, I want to encourage you all, if you're like challenging yourself, like, what is my identity? Like, I know Jesus loves me, right? But like, who am I? Like, what am I supposed to do with my talents? I really suggest breaking down your life into different accounts. Like, what is important to you? Your spouse, your kids, your personal development, your education, your career. Like, where do you find yourself putting the most time into? Do you want to be putting time into that, right? And figure out who that person is that you want to be, and then figure out those little baby steps to take in order to get to be that person. Because again, that person of being loyal and strong and courageous and confident, I have to do a lot of work now to get to that. And thankfully, I've seen progress, and I'm going to continue to see progress because I'm worth it, and it's worth it for my kids to see a strong woman personally developing and not getting stuck with just the lemons and the sourness of the lemons, that I'm going to make lemonade and continue to make lemonade, which is why I'm in my car, because I just got out of the chiropractor and I'm going to go to a massage therapist because I'm constantly working on my health to make sure that my mind and my body are working efficiently, as well as my soul and my quiet time with the Lord and my prayers and community in with other like-minded people is so important. So I'm going to close out my 5 days, well, I guess technically 6 since I skipped yesterday. That's okay. It's not a big deal, right? Of sharing my lemons and how I made them into lemonade. So my identity crisis was a lemon because it was super uncomfortable, but I needed to be uncomfortable to actually make changes, to actually look inside. It was more uncomfortable staying where I was at than it was actually taking a stand and being like, okay, I'm going to do something about this. And this is unknown. I'm probably going to mess up and it's going to be messy, but it's going to be worth it. So life is worth the messiness. It's worth pushing through and trying to figure out what it is, those dreams that you've had in the back of your mind, figuring out what those steps are to get to those dreams. If you're having a hard time, if it seems really overwhelming, I totally get it. I've been there. I'd love to talk with you. Let me know. Message me and let's talk about it, because it's just amazing how when someone just listens and you just are able to kind of like verbally vomit all of your thoughts, what can kind of come to mind. And then together we can break it down into little baby steps. And so that way it's just easier to achieve. So thank you so much if you've stuck with me watching and learning about my lemons. I'd love to hear about other people's lemons and how they've made it into lemonade. And Callie, yay, my cousin is on. Hello, happy Saturday. I hope you all use this day to create something beautiful. It's your choice. No one forces you to make lemonade. You can sit with your lemon and look at it and obsess about it. You can lick it and it can be sour and you can continue to go back to it and be sour, or you can make something out of it. And it's really your choice. You have that ability. You have that free will. I hope that you consider that. Take care, and I look forward to talking with you all another time. Bye.